Most appliance repair videos are posted by professionals or by the manufacturers, and they sometimes make it look pretty simple. This video is going to be a gear case replacement from the perspective of a homeowner who's handy, but doing this particular work for the very first time. We have a really small laundry room. You have to take the doorway off to get the washing machine out, and there's not room to fully lay it back with the dryer in there. So what I'm gonna do, setting the washing machine at this angle, and I'll have to work beneath. So first step will be to pull this cover right here off. It's just two of these 5/16 inch screws. Got one of them out. I'll get the other one out, drop that cover off. All right, with the cover off, we see some material thrown in here. Might be some type of oil from inside that transmission. So aside from the spline wear, transmission might have some other issues. We'll make sure that we understand where this material is coming from before we seal everything back up, put it back together. Okay, so we're underneath now. We're gonna walk this belt off. We are going to pull the wiring harness and anything else in our way. We'll have to look around a little bit, but ultimately we're gonna get to these bolts, machine screws right here. Looks like there's gonna be 4, maybe 6 of those, and then we should be able to drop the whole transmission out, and yeah, get the whole transmission out and get it on the tabletop, and we'll work on moving all these parts from the old transmission to the new transmission once we have it out and on the tabletop. All right, with the belt out and the harness out of the way, we're gonna go after these 4 bolts now and see if we can drop the whole transmission out with the motor, splutch, actuator, capacitor, all that attached. So see if we can take it out in one piece and work on it tabletop. And if that fails to come out as one piece, I'll come back and tell you why. Okay, we got the transmission wiggled out of there. I was basically pulling the 4 bolts, and then you pull down on these lips to break it free where it's sealed. This rubber piece will be sealed into the bottom of the tub, and you just gotta wiggle the platform and work it to pull it down out of the washer. Now that we're out up on the tabletop, we're gonna swap the motor, capacitor, agitator, and here is clear confirmation of why we need a new transmission. Look at this compared to new, and only 3 years old. And this is the part that baffles me, is these splines ride inside a plastic fitting, and somehow in only 3 years these splines go from this condition to this condition, rubbing against plastic. That baffles me. Something doesn't seem right, but it is what it is, and we'll see how long this one lasts. Okay, for me, this nut right here was difficult. So what I did is I put the belt back on, laid a towel over the belt, used that as a choke point to squeeze. And squeezing this choke point stops the wheel from spinning. And then I went to a full breaker bar. And with this setup, with one hand on the choker point, one hand on the breaker bar, then I was able to break that nut free. A little bit of WD-40. I didn't have any PB plaster on hand, but a little bit of WD-40 I think helped in that equation as well. Okay, we have all of our pieces off. This is the old transmission. New transmission's down here waiting. So this is the old transmission. We have the motor out. We have the capacitor off. We have the agitator off. We have the splutch taken apart and the spring out. So I'm going to go to some better light and just investigate the splines on the splutch before I put everything back together on the new. And the splines on the transmission side of the splutch look pretty good. So still confused what beat the heck out of the main splines on the drive shaft, but I guess it's not important unless it happens again to the new one. Okay, here we are fully assembled on the new gear case. So we've got motor, the splutch is all checked out, the springs checked out, that's back together. We have the capacitor back on and we have the agitator back on. So everything is fully assembled. We will now go back underneath the washer, bolt all this up and reattach the wiring harness and remake the electrical connections. Okay, here we are underneath, hooked back up. I ended up dropping the motor out again as I got the gear case in and lined up. And again, part of that's because my odd angle that I'm in here working from below with the washer leaned back like so because of the constraints of my room. If you can get your washer laying on its back, you could probably put the whole thing back in one piece. But the angle I was at, the way I was trying to work, lining everything up, the extra weight of the motor was just making it really hard to line up one-handed while the other hand tried to get the screws, these screws here started. So anyway, dropped the motor out, got everything lined up. Finally, it was a beast. Very frustrating. It's back in now. Motor's in, motor's tight, harness is in, harness fasteners are all in. Agitators hooked back up, capacitors hooked back up, got the belt on the splutch. Everything under here now should be good to go. And now we are ready to stand her up and put the tub in. Okay, we did clean this gear case cover up and reinstall it as well. And coming back to that issue of the material that was on the grease case, the greasy material that was on the gear case that we looked at earlier, my suspicion is that some violent off-balance shaking is what ate up the tines on the drive shaft. And I'm guessing that same shaking caused some oil from inside the gear case to get past the bearing. So I'm assuming that's what that was. So we've got all that cleaned up now, ship shape. Now we'll stand this up and put the tub in. All right, you guys are going to be seeing the troubleshooting steps here in reverse as we go to put this thing back together. So here is the drive shaft coming up out of that gear case that we just installed with its nice new splines. And you saw how the old ones were beat up. And how we discovered that is when we pulled off this hub, which holds the tub in place. You see how worn those splines are. So this is our new fitting with nice, good-looking teeth in there. So it was this discovery, these worn teeth, are what was keeping the basket from spinning at high speed. We'll talk about that more later. But that was the hang up in the spin cycle. And so once we saw this condition, that's what led us down to see the worn out condition on the old gear case. So right now we're gonna pop in this new hub. Okay, we're gonna go back in now with our agitator, and again, showing you the troubleshooting in reverse order, or reverse sequence. So we had already looked at these teeth here on the agitator. Felt like that was good. Felt like these top teeth were good. That is what led us below into that plate, which is where we discovered the issues inside that hub and discovered the issues on the drive shaft. So the agitator itself was good, so the old agitator is going back now. Okay, so the agitator's in, and to fasten that down, the bolt hole is all the way down at the end of that sleeve. So a trick I'm going to use is just a mechanic's magnet, and the bolt is on the end of this magnet. So I'll use the magnet to hold the bolt and try to start that thread. Once I got it threaded, I'll use extensions and a socket wrench. Okay, the magnet trick worked. So the agitator is in. We've put the tub ring back on. We've replaced the lid, bolted it down. Everything's good to go. So again, showing you guys the reverse troubleshooting steps. I'm going to show you what we went through to test the washer initially. And so the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to remove these. These are little Torx. You're going to remove these so that you can take this latch mechanism and just plug it in right here to trick the washer into thinking that the lid is locked so that you can watch the troubleshooting steps. Be right back. We've removed the latch mechanism. We've installed that down here. That's going to trick the sensor into believing the lid is locked. As we put this in diagnostic mode, and we are going to run a manual test. There's lid lock. And I want, let's see, this is going to be, hold on guys, I'm going to move something on over here. I'm referring to something, cold valve, hot valve, reserved, 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 drain, reserved. Okay, low speed spin. Yeah, we were not getting this spin right here before the repair, and an attempt to spin like this was throwing the washing machine just wildly out of balance. It was shaking all over the room. So we've proved there that the low speed spin works. That'll slow down and stop. And as that reaches a stop, we're gonna do one more turn here, which should get us into high speed spin mode. Now she's empty. I would expect a little bit of shaking empty, but you couldn't put this thing in high speed spin before. I mean, it was a noise like you've never heard in your life, and this washing machine trying to come out of the room. I mean, it was crazy. So yeah, she's gonna wobble a bit here, being empty. There's no load to balance her out nicely, but she's spinning at a high speed and nowhere near the violence we had earlier. So very happy with the spin mode. Let this come to a stop. So those are the two modes that were giving us trouble before. The machine would not dependably spin. Sometimes it would spin, sometimes it wouldn't. When it did spin, it went crazy and started shaking and beating itself to death. So those were the main two trouble modes. Now, agitation was off and on as well. So we're gonna look here at gentle agitation. That looks good. I'm gonna stop that. We're gonna go one more setting here for heavy agitation. Yeah, nice and strong, and the basket's not spinning with the agitator, which was an issue earlier. Earlier, when the agitator would spin, the basket would try to spin with it. So, yep, we have got a completed repair here. And we're gonna take this out of control mode. There we go. And we're gonna run one last calibration mode behind all this, just to be certain that everything is good to go. So that calibration mode is gonna be 360, 1, 2, 3, 1, missed it. 360, 1, 2, 3, 1, 1. And now we want the rinse light. This is calibration mode right here. Now this overall calibration can take 2 to 4 minutes, so I'm not going to keep us here the entire time for the full calibration, but you guys have seen all the important parts, and we're wrapped up. Well, calibration mode just wrapped up, interestingly, so that was quick. So yeah, we're finished. Brand new gear case, brand new transmission. While we were in there, we cleaned everything spick and span, top to bottom. We basically have what's like a new washer at this point. So a lot of money saved and a washer salvaged without having to go out and buy new or pay for repair.